very much for coming and being with us. Anything you write about crypto gets obsolete every half an hour. So it's quite difficult to talk about crypto in general, but I'll make an attempt at it. First things first, what you're going to hear from the podium today that way is going to be less of interest. I think amongst you are a lot of experts, so talk to each other. That's where all the learning will happen. And again, we want this to be a learning day. We want to talk a lot about topics that are broader than just the financial aspects of crypto. So cryptography and the crypto economy is a very interesting part of all our lives. It's got a lot of drama, intrigue, suspense, and even some romance. So it's a pretty important part of our lives now, and it's gone mainstream. And that's what we're going to talk about. What is it broadly, and how it has gone mainstream, and how Abu Dhabi and the UAE has embraced it and is having it thrive globally. Because a lot of the people here are engaged with it in some shape or form. Let me give you some numbers. 11% of the UAE nationals or UAE residents have some sort of a crypto engagement. Either they own currency or they engage with cryptography in some shape or form. Number two, we are number 10 in the world in terms of the crypto economy, being a participant in the crypto economy, which is also an amazing statistic to know. And ADGM and Abu Dhabi are clear leaders in making sure that there are sensible regulations, a very, very permissive landscape for all of you to be coming here and making this a home. So those are the messages from my side. Now, let's talk a little bit about the crypto economy and what it means. Well, of course, we all talk about the future of finance, and finance is where a lot of the viewpoints were in terms of disruptions and efficiencies and movement of money from A to B. And we talk a lot about the manifestation of them through exchanges and other forms of movement of money. And what we realize is that that's only a small part of the crypto economy, right? And the way I look at it is if you look out in the ocean and you see the water, there's above the water and below the water, right? So we're going to talk about the water line, and we'll talk about what's above the water and what's below the water. And above the water is what you see, what you hear, what media tells you, and how you feel and how you react with that. And a lot of it is, if you look at what is happening in the contemporary news regarding exchanges and others, nothing is very different than what happens in a fiat economy. Exchanges rise and fall, finance goes up and down. That's just normal, right? So it's absolutely clear to me that from our perspective, it's a normal evolution of any technology. And I think we are very privileged to live in a world where innovation is far outpacing our own capacity to learn. So that's really where we are today. So when these crypto exchanges go sometimes bust, a lot of it is leverage, very simply. If you have low leverage, you're not going to make much money. If you have high leverage, you have a risk of failing. What's that balance? We need to figure that out. So when you talk about future finance and how finance is being built, it's a normal thing for exchanges to come up, rise, and fail. Life goes like that. So when we talk about corridors, we talk about lanes and windows. And so lanes are, for example, remittance. Remittance is a laneway or a product or a viewpoint. And a window is how much transactions can happen through that. So if you were going to have financial inclusion and have somebody move $10 from A to B and charge them $1 in the fiat economy, that's 10% gone. Versus if crypto enables that to happen seamlessly with very, very little amount of money taken away, it's amazing because that person can have a livelihood. Somebody makes $1 a day would not lose that dollar. However, on the same note, the same technology can move $1 billion from A to B without any friction. Is that good or bad? Should it be regulated or not? And here is the point. The point is that it should be regulated. And perhaps it should have some very, very prudent and thought-through regulations to be able to make sure that the economy thrives in both directions. So if you look at a dumbbell, you have one side weighing in and the other side weighing in, and that balance is an important balance. So I'll leave that viewpoint on the future of finance and move on to other topics. So what else is above the waterline today? We talk about the metaverse. Metaverse is also above the waterline. Everybody talks about the metaverse. Everybody wants to be on the metaverse. Everybody wants to be a part of the metaverse. Now, call it FOMO or call it real. I think it will become real at some point in time, but imagine for everybody to be on the metaverse, you need incredible amounts of computing power. You need infrastructure like, you wouldn't have seen today. Latency is an issue, and also movement of data requires a lot of bandwidth. So all of these things are going to be a problem if everybody's going to go right in the metaverse, but it is real, it is going to happen. Things like digital tourism, things like tokenization of your engagements with various brands, all of that is going to happen, more from the marketing sense, but also from a utility sense. Building digital twins and building utility above that, buildings that can be adjudicated and you could service on the metaverse is going to happen. Let's move to the next one, which is above the waterline, mining. Excess energy can be used to load balance and mine Bitcoin. Right? Proof of work is one protocol, but there are other protocols as well. However, at least if proof of work is considered, mining is an important part that everybody talks about because you create nodes, you create security, you create a robust ecosystem for Bitcoin. And when that happens, you realize that when you mine something with no net increase in energy production, and it's just balancing the grid, then it's probably a good thing if you consider Bitcoin of any value. If you consider it of no value, then it's probably worth nothing, right? Because it's all wasted. And if, from a global sense, if people talk about Bitcoin mining and how much energy it uses, you'd be surprised. It's 0.16% of the global energy. It's minuscule. Out of the many trillions of terawatt hours produced every year, Bitcoin mining is minuscule. So in many ways, when you look at it from an economic point of view, if you put any value to Bitcoin, mining is probably one of those things where you should look at and consider as a part of the ecosystem. Now, what's below the waterline? Things you don't see. Things you don't see are supply chain. How do you make sure that you have provenance of goods? So how do you know the food that arrives to your table from the farm arrives in good health? How do you make sure the vaccines that come from the United States to here come in good health? How do you make sure that the wine you buy in the marketplace is authentic? How do you make sure that the bag you buy from Louis Vuitton is real? A lot of that can go in the blockchain, and the blockchain can actually assist you in making sure that that supply chain integrity remains, because you can always go back and see where and when each of those items went through, and the supply chain integrity remains. And that is one of the key utilities of blockchain, right? So as I'm kind of stepping you through, I'm just sharing with you the broad view of what the crypto economy is all about. What else is below the waterline? Data economy. Whose data should you have? What should you do with that data? For example, if you produce your data, should you be able to give it away, which you do today to Facebook and others? Or should you be able to own it and be able to do something with it for yourselves? There are many examples out there where companies have come up with rewarding you for sharing your data in the form of tokens. And that's one more way of individuals participating in the crypto economy and monetizing their own lives as we move forward. Tokenization is another one where many, many things are being tokenized. KKR is doing tokenization for funds. Real estate is doing tokenization as well. Why do they do that? Because you create a secondary economy and you are able to trade assets and you're able to make life more efficient. And remember, everything that is happening in this space predominantly is about cost reduction, and efficiency, right, in many ways. And lastly, digital identity. Each of you will ultimately have a digital identity. Each of you will be sharing that digital identity with people, and each of you will make sure that only things that need to be given would be given. Today, when I go to any place here, I'm giving my Emirates ID. My Emirates ID has every single detail of mine in there. Why should I? All they need is my identity, right? Can I not give my identity in another way so that they can say, oh yeah, this is Feroz, and he's going to come into our building. Why do I have to share everything that I have? These are the concepts that are being talked about, and I think they will ultimately become real at some point in time. So saying that, I want to kind of give you a broader view of what the technology does. So it's not just about finance, but it's about a large universe out there that's below the waterline that you hardly ever see, but it runs our economies and it will continue to run our economies. I'll give you another interesting point. Everybody's thought that, oh, with the collapse of some of the exchanges and others, Bitcoin would be dead. Well, Bitcoin went from, what, 20,000 to 16? That's not a collapse in any which way, right? I wouldn't call that a collapse at all. I would say, hey, that's very robust. In many ways, things have moved on, and they will move on. If I look back into the life that I had in Silicon Valley when I saw Facebook form, Google form, and others formed, all of these companies started in a world of uncertainty, in a world of a depressed market. So I always look at when markets adjust, it's a great opportunity for entrepreneurs to come up and develop new things and new ideas. And that's what you see is happening. A lot of development of new ideas in the space of crypto. And that will continue for some time to come. So I'll leave the stage today by sharing a one thought experiment and saying, where are we today in the evolution of crypto? So think the first Bitcoin mine was at 6 a.m. in the morning, and the last Bitcoin mine will be at 6 p.m. Do you know where we are today? We're at 7:15 in the morning. We've got a whole day and a whole afternoon and a whole evening to go. Thank you very much.